everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Elections, Brexit, the price of precious metals and dealer ethics. These things are often intrinsically linked, but not necessarily in the way that you might expect. Now, last week here in the United Kingdom, we had a general election, and as a consequence of the exit poll and the indication that the Conservative government in favour of Brexit were going to win, the value of the pound soared. It went up and up and up, which meant that the value of gold and silver went down. The prices went down, and a lot of dealers out there reacted by suspending purchases from their websites. Really interesting. A lot of you picked up on this last week. I saw a lot of people commenting on the Silver Forum and then over on my YouTube videos as well, asking whether this was ethical, legal, all of these questions about what would happen in the future if there was different price fluctuations around gold and silver and the responsibility perhaps that dealers have. So in today's video, we're going to talk about, of course, the implications of these type of things on home currencies and its relation to your buying power for gold and silver. We'll address the situation of dealers, whether or not that's legal, ethical, etc. And also just give some thoughts on how better to protect yourself if you are looking to buy or perhaps even sell gold to dealers or from dealers in the future. Now, it's really important to understand that this video is, well, first of all, I used the word legal earlier there. You know, I'm not going to give legal advice here. Nobody really truly knows. I'm certainly not giving financial advice, so please bear that in mind. Any financial decisions that you make are yours and yours alone. I'm just a guy who likes to talk about shiny things here on YouTube. The next thing I just want to put out there is that I don't want this video to turn into a Brexit debate or a political debate. The election is behind us now. We can move on with that. We are marching towards a Brexit. Let's just deal with that and not moan about the past. So please be respectful of mine and other people's opinions down in the comments. So let's start with where it all began last week. So for those who don't know, we had a general election here in the United Kingdom, and the dominating thing about the election was Brexit, and it seems like the country has spoken because there was an overwhelming indication that the Conservative government would win a sizable majority and be able, as Boris Johnson says, get Brexit done. Now that had a big implication for the value of the pound. A lot more confidence was put into the pound last Thursday evening, just after the exit poll was announced, and we saw the value of the pound go up, which means you can get more value for your money when purchasing shiny things like this, which means prices go down. So that has a really nice opportunity for a lot of people to look to buy something. I know I've been eyeing up a few different coins that were on various dealers' websites in that week before, and I decided not to purchase any because I just didn't know what would happen with the election. I did jump onto some of those dealers' websites at about 10 past 10 last Thursday night, only to see a few of them had suspended purchases, and it was a bit of a shame because one of them I probably would have bought at the high swing. It was about £1,120 an ounce at the beginning of that evening, and at the low it was about £11.85 an ounce. So you could theoretically have saved £35 if you were buying an ounce of gold, which is no small amount of cash. So really interesting situation that happened there, and whether or not that's ethical, legal, I mean, I'm not going to comment on the legality of those type of things. I just don't know, and I don't really suspect that it is illegal, but I'm not going to speculate further than that. Now, as to whether or not it was ethical, there's definitely questions around that side of things, and I personally think that there's two schools of thought here. Of course, any business has the right to protect itself, and ultimately a business is there to make money. If this was a government-funded public service of buying back gold and they suddenly suspended it, then one might have a different argument for the different side of that argument. However, you know, these dealers, they're there as businesses, they're there to make money, and if they see a sudden huge drop in the value of their assets, and ultimately that's, you know, that was a sizable drop, and the margins on gold for dealers are often pretty low, it would represent significant losses for them. So yes, I do agree that for dealers out there, it is okay to suspend these purchases. Some might see it as unethical or morally grey. Personally, I'm not in that camp. I'm annoyed by it because I can't necessarily purchase the gold or silver that I wanted to buy at a slightly cheaper price. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're not talking about vast sums of money here, and I'm not too bothered. Would I be more bothered if there was a £500 drop in the price of gold and suddenly we weren't able to buy any gold or silver out there because these dealers had suspended all of their sales? Well, yes, potentially that might have an impact on my thinking, but that is, in my opinion, a fairly unlikely scenario. Now, ultimately, it doesn't make too much difference for dealers to suspend their purchases or not, because ultimately, and I've spoken with dealers like this, if the value of the gold and silver goes down, often these dealers will look at that as a buying opportunity. They'll stock up and they'll have more stock ready to go for the future. But ultimately, I do understand, that it is a difficult one for any business to do, especially if you're a relatively small business or if you have cash flow situations to manage as well. So definitely lots of different schools of thought. Love to know your opinions on this as we go throughout the video. So let me know down below in the comments section. So this is all, of course, due to the relationship between the value of currencies and gold and silver and the buying power that you have. It's not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction from precious metal markets. Now, of course, precious metal markets will take some reaction to various world events, elections, situations, trade wars, all of this Brexit reactions and everything. But the vast majority of the time, it is the value of currencies that fuel these fluctuations in the value of pounds and dollars and euros and whatever it might be. So that's definitely something to think about. And I've talked about this so many times on my channel, I've lost count, that ultimately these price fluctuations are down to the changes in the value of the pound. An ounce of gold, an ounce of silver is still worth an ounce of gold, an ounce of silver. The amount of fiat currency you get back out, or the amount of fiat currency it takes to buy something, is what really dictates how you're looking at it. And a lot of people who are out there might have been thinking that it would have been a great buying opportunity, but there's also probably a lot of people who were thinking, oh god, is this a downward trend? Is this now the start of something where I need to look to get my cash back out of the gold and silver that I've purchased, because we are looking at it all going down and down and down for the future? Again, I've said this phrase many times before: you don't lose anything, you don't gain anything until you actually cash out from precious metals. So do bear that in mind. Now, what can we learn from this going forward? That's what I really like to do and think about for all of the videos, all of the situations that I do commentaries on. I always want to think about how it's going to affect me into the future. Now, it does get me thinking about various dealers and what might happen in the event of a huge spike or dip in gold and silver. Now, of course, for me, who's collecting for sort of 30 years' time, if there was a falling out of the market for gold and it went to, I don't know, 800, 700, 500 pounds an ounce, if the gold-silver ratio corrected back down to 30-1 and gold is the loser there, I wouldn't ultimately be too bothered. Yes, it would be a bit of a shame to see all of the value in the gold that we currently hold, losing value, but ultimately I'm not too bothered about that because it would represent buying opportunities going forward. But it does raise interesting questions about dealer responsibilities and ethics, about whether or not they would even be there in a situation to buy the gold off you, buy the silver off you, if things went up a lot. Now, we've talked a lot about going down a lot here, but equally so, things can go up. Of course, we have talked about price markets in terms of currencies, but what happens if there was a situation where the value of gold and silver suddenly soared? Would dealers be able to purchase the gold and silver off you? Now, I personally, again, going back to the school of thought that dealers are there to be businesses, and ultimately, if gold and silver starts to go up and up and up and up and up, there will come a point where dealers will probably start to say no. And that's in itself a worry, because if you've got a bunch of gold and silver and you're seeing the prices starting to slowly creep up, there is an opportunity there for dealers to take the gold and silver off you and sell it on again while people are still buying to make some money. However, when they think perhaps that the peak has come or is going to come, they might well suspend their ability to purchase. Also, because the gold and silver prices will be going up, if you have a large amount of gold and silver, they would not necessarily have the cash flow to be able to buy all of it in one go. If you had 20 ounces of gold at the start of this process and gold prices doubled, then all of a sudden, they would be looking to need, £40,000 worth of cash just to buy all of your gold. Now, I know a lot of dealers out there will have large cash reserves or cash flow management to be able to do this, but not all dealers will. And it does raise interesting questions about liquidity in those situations. And I like to, one thing that I also want to bring up here to kind of finish this topic about dealer ethics. It does seem sometimes that there are double standards on these type of situations. That's what I want to kind of finish this on, because whilst I respect businesses and dealers out there who want to protect their assets, protect their livelihoods, protect their business, there does seem to be somewhat of double standards. When you see big spikes in gold prices and, the value of everything that's on a dealer's website starts creeping up and up and up, and perhaps they've purchased it recently from customers at the, let's say, £1,000 an ounce mark, and then gold goes up to £1,100 an ounce mark within, say, a couple of weeks. You don't see suspension of them selling the gold, because they, of course, are going to make lots and lots of money on that gold. So it's a little bit kind of it's a bit double standard to be suspending the purchasing prices to save them money, but then taking advantage of the increase in prices to make as much money as possible. So there's definitely two schools of thought on this. As I said, I'm going to be in the camp of a business has the right to support itself and to protect itself, definitely. As a purchaser of gold and silver, though, it's very interesting to kind of think about that and how I feel about it. Personally, I'm of two schools of thought. I don't know. I'm going to stick in, I think, in the my gut feeling that a business has the right to protect itself. Ultimately, I like to think that I am in a pretty good position in terms of my liquidity. We have various options out there. Liquidity is probably the last point to talk about in this video. So this does raise questions of liquidity for gold and silver. If you are in a situation where you've got an awful lot of gold and silver, liquidity is really important to think about. For us, one of the avenues for a lot of these gold coins that you see out here on the table is to sell them to a dealer, if we needed to release all of those funds. But if there was a situation where dealers were perhaps unable to purchase all of the gold and silver at one time, or perhaps they didn't want to purchase some of the coins, like perhaps the older Britannias, which are not pure gold, perhaps they're buying all their gold and selling it on for refining, who knows? There's definitely schools of thought for that about liquidity. And for us here in the Backyard Bullion household, we are protected in the sense that we do have, of course, other avenues to consider. And I would highly recommend people out there to think about their exit strategies. And if you are very dependent on dealers, perhaps to think about just starting to think about how you would sell things other than to dealers. We, of course, sell our hand-pulled silver all the time, and we have seller reputation. We have this social media presence. If we just sell something, people will have a lot more confidence to buy it than perhaps they would from Joe blogs who might just be, people might think they're a scammer. We've got a lot more to lose in terms of that reputation side of things. So there's definitely, that avenue for us to consider. And I think that's a really important one for a lot of people out there to think about too. I do see it quite a lot on places like the Silver Forum, even places like eBay. A brand new seller will come on, they'll have a piece of gold or silver listed and it won't sell, even at a good price. And that's because people are wary, rightly so, of new sellers. So there's definitely something to think about from that side of things in terms of liquidity. Now, going forward into 2020 with regards Brexit, I did say that liquidity was going to be my last point, but I have got a little bullet point list here, and I did want to talk very quickly about, the price of, or the value of pounds and dollars. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening in 2020. Brexit is one thing for us in the UK to think about and look at. Negotiations of a future trade deal will happen in 2020 as well. Globally, there's going to be an awful lot of things happening in 2020. We've got impeachment for the US to have a look at and have some fun with. Don't think it's going to actually yield any kind of impeachment, but still it's going to play a factor. There's, of course, the general election, I don't think you call it that, just the election in the US next year, which will be an interesting situation to observe and watch from an outside perspective. How that is all going to affect money markets, precious metal markets, nobody knows. Nobody truly knows. I have started to see more and more videos out there of metal price predictions going up and up and up. 2020 is going to be the year it's going to soar. There's going to be this and this that will affect things. Just take all of those with a pinch of salt, and remember as well that it's not necessarily about the metal prices, it's about the value of currencies as well. So you might see a lot of indications that metal prices will go up, about supply, demand, all of these factors. But there could well be other situations that will affect the price of the dollar or price of the pound, and your buying power for those currencies will change significantly. So definitely lots to think about going forward, and nobody knows. But I wish everybody the best of luck with all of their decisions, and I would highly recommend you go and get some actual financial advice rather than just watching lots of videos if you're concerned about these situations. So that's it from me today on these subjects. I hope you've enjoyed it. Love to know your thoughts and opinions on them, as we do always in these type of videos. Just be respectful of mine and others' opinions, and I'll see you down in the comment section for all of the fun discussions. If you enjoy the video, thumbs up, share it around on your social media. That would be very helpful. If you want to see videos like this in the future, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to get notifications when these videos go live, then hit the alarm bell. Now, we're exactly 1 week out from Christmas, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't tend to watch a lot of YouTube videos on Christmas Day. I like to spend time with family and opening presents and having a rather large dinner. So next week, we're going to do a Christmas Eve Ponderous Tuesday, a ponderous Christmas Eve Tuesday, I guess you could call it. So we'll be moving our video next week to a Tuesday, and then there'll of course be a couple of days break for Christmas. So we'll see you next week. I hope you all have a brilliant run up to Christmas. Thank you all for watching, and as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.